Boston Harbor, December 1773. 3 ships sit quietly in the freezing water. Their cargo is simple: tea, hundreds of wooden chests filled with it. But tonight, that tea has become one of the most dangerous cargoes in the British Empire, because the people of Boston are angry, very angry. For years they have argued with Britain about taxes, control, and power. And tonight, something is about to happen that will echo through history. But the famous moment everyone remembers, the tea thrown into the harbor, hasn't happened yet. Right now, it is the night before, and the streets of Boston are filled with rumors, arguments, and quiet planning. Because what begins tonight will push the American colonies one step closer to revolution. In 1773, Boston is one of the most important port cities in the British Empire. Every day, ships arrive from across the Atlantic carrying goods, news, and people from distant parts of the world. The harbor is crowded with masts and sails. Dock workers move barrels of rum, sugar, and molasses from ship to shore. Merchants negotiate loudly on the wharves while sailors unload cargo that will soon fill the markets and warehouses of the town. To an outsider, Boston looks prosperous and energetic, a busy colonial port growing richer with trade. But beneath this activity, something far more tense is developing. Conversations in taverns are no longer only about trade or weather. Instead, people argue about politics, power, and the growing conflict with Britain. Many colonists feel that decisions about their lives are being made thousands of miles away in London. Parliament passes laws and taxes, yet the people who must obey them have no representatives there. This idea, taxation without representation, is becoming one of the most dangerous phrases in the colonies. In Boston especially, anger is beginning to spread. Public meetings grow larger. Pamphlets criticizing British policy circulate through the streets. And in taverns near the harbor, heated debates continue late into the night. Boston is still a loyal British colony, but the mood of the city is changing. Slowly, quietly, and with every new law from London, the tension grows stronger. The tension between Boston and Britain did not appear overnight. For years, the relationship between the colonies and the British government had been slowly deteriorating. After the expensive 7 Years' War, Britain was left with enormous debt. London believed the American colonies should help pay for the cost of defending the empire, so Parliament began introducing new taxes. First came the Stamp Act of 1765, which required colonists to pay for official stamps on newspapers, legal documents, and many printed materials. The reaction was immediate. Protests erupted across the colonies, and crowds demanded the law be repealed. Soon after came the Townshend Acts, placing duties on imported goods such as glass, paint, paper, and tea. Again, resistance grew. Merchants organized boycotts of British goods, and political groups began forming in cities like Boston. But tea became the most symbolic product of all. Almost every household drank it. It was part of daily life. And when the Tea Act of 1773 allowed the British East India Company to sell taxed tea directly in the colonies, many colonists saw it not as a bargain, but as a trap. To them, buying that tea meant accepting Parliament's right to tax them. And in Boston, that was something many people were no longer willing to do. In late November 1773, 3 ships carrying taxed tea arrive in Boston Harbor. the Dartmouth, the Eleanor, the Beaver. Together, they carry 342 chests of tea. Under British law, the cargo must be unloaded and the tax must be paid within 20 days. If that happens, the tea becomes legal. But Boston's protest leaders are determined not to let that happen. Crowds gather at meetings, thousands attend. Speakers argue loudly. Some demand that the ships return to England. Others warn that if the tea is unloaded, it will encourage more taxes in the future. The situation becomes increasingly tense, and the deadline is approaching fast. As December approaches, Boston becomes a city full of whispers. Merchants talk quietly in taverns. Dock workers argue near the harbor. Rumors spread through the streets. Some say the governor will force the tea to be unloaded. Others believe the ships will leave peacefully. But behind the scenes, a group of protest organizers is preparing for something far more dramatic. Many of them belong to a political movement called the Sons of Liberty. Their goal is simple: stop the tea, no matter what. On December 16, 1773, Boston gathers for what will become one of the most important public meetings in colonial history. Thousands of colonists move through the cold streets toward the Old South Meeting House. The building quickly fills beyond capacity. Men pack the hall shoulder to shoulder, while hundreds more stand outside, waiting to hear the outcome. Inside, the atmosphere is tense. Merchants, sailors, laborers, and political leaders all argue about the same question: what should Boston do about the tea? Some speakers urge caution. They warn that destroying British property could bring serious punishment from the Crown. Others speak with anger. They insist that if the tea is unloaded and the tax is paid, Britain will only grow more confident in controlling the colonies. Voices rise. The crowd murmurs. Every update from the harbor spreads quickly through the room. Messengers arrive with news. The colonial governor still refuses to allow the ships to leave without paying the tax. That means time is running out. If the tea remains on the ships overnight, British law will force it to be unloaded the next day. And suddenly, the meeting no longer feels like a debate. It feels like a countdown. Because everyone in the room understands one thing: if Boston wants to stop the tea, tonight may be the last chance. Late in the afternoon, the meeting at the Old South Meeting House begins to break apart. For hours, the crowd has argued, debated, and waited for some kind of solution. Thousands of men have packed into the building and the surrounding streets, listening closely to every update from the harbor. But now, the final news arrives. The governor has refused permission for the tea ships to leave Boston. That means the law will soon force the cargo to be unloaded. And if the tea touches the docks, the tax will be paid. For many in the crowd, that moment would feel like surrender. A heavy silence spreads through the meeting house. People look at one another, understanding that the choices are running out. Some witnesses later recall hearing a voice shout that this meeting can do nothing more to save the country. Moments later, the crowd begins to move, not slowly, not casually, but with purpose. Groups of men step into the cold December air and begin walking toward the harbor. Some pull blankets around their shoulders. Others carry small tools hidden beneath coats. A few smear dark paint across their faces. Whether meant as disguise or symbolism, the intention is clear. These men are preparing to act, and they know what they are about to do could bring serious consequences. Boston is quiet as they move through the streets. But something important has just happened. The debate is over. Now comes the action. Night falls over Boston. Cold wind moves across the harbor. The 3 tea-ships sit quietly at their docks. Then, suddenly, a group of men climbs aboard the first vessel. Crew members watch silently. The protesters open the cargo holds. Inside are large wooden chests filled with tea. One by one, they break them open and dump the contents into the dark water below. More men move to the other ships. The process continues for hours. Chest after chest disappears into Boston Harbor. The water turns dark with floating tea leaves. Crowds watch from the docks. But there is almost no chaos, no looting, no drunken violence, just careful, determined destruction. When the work is finished, 342 chests of tea are gone. What happens in Boston Harbor that night is far more than the destruction of cargo. It is a signal, a message sent across the Atlantic Ocean to the heart of the British Empire. For years, the American colonies had protested taxes with petitions, boycotts, and public speeches. Merchants refused British goods. Crowds gathered in the streets. Newspapers printed angry arguments about rights and representation. But the events of December 16, 1773 are different. This time, the protest is physical. Hundreds of chests of tea, valuable cargo owned by the powerful British East India Company, are deliberately destroyed in front of witnesses. The act is organized, disciplined, and unmistakably political. The men involved do not steal the tea. They do not keep it. They throw it into the harbor, making sure the cargo cannot be recovered or sold. This detail matters because the goal is not profit. The goal is resistance. By destroying the tea, the protesters are rejecting the authority of Parliament to impose taxes on the colonies without their consent. To the British government, this act looks like defiance, even rebellion. To many colonists, it looks like something else, a declaration that the relationship between Britain and its American colonies is changing. Word of the event spreads quickly. Within weeks, ships carry the news across the Atlantic. In London, politicians react with outrage. To them, the Boston Tea Party is not simply protest. It is a direct challenge to imperial power, and empires rarely ignore challenges. Soon, Britain will respond with new laws, new punishments, and greater military control. But the people of Boston have already crossed a line. After the tea sinks into the cold water of the harbor, one truth becomes clear. The conflict between Britain and the American colonies is no longer just about taxes. It is becoming something much larger, a struggle over who has the right to rule. News of the destruction in Boston Harbor spreads across the Atlantic faster than anyone in the colonies expects. When word reaches London, the reaction is immediate and furious. To British leaders, the Boston Tea Party is not simply a protest. It is a direct challenge to the authority of the empire. Parliament believes that if Boston is not punished, other colonies may follow the same path. So in 1774, Britain introduces a series of harsh new laws. In the colonies, these laws become known as the Intolerable Acts. Boston Harbor is closed until the destroyed tea is fully paid for. Trade stops almost overnight. Dock workers lose their jobs. Merchants see their businesses collapse. At the same time, the British government tightens control over Massachusetts. Local self-government is reduced. British troops increase their presence in the city. Instead of isolating Boston, however, the punishment has the opposite effect. Other colonies begin sending food, supplies, and messages of support. For many Americans, Boston is no longer just a distant port city. It becomes a symbol of resistance against British control. Colonial leaders begin organizing meetings and congresses. They discuss rights, representation, and the future of the colonies. What began as a dispute over tea and taxes is slowly transforming into something much larger. Within less than 2 years, tensions will finally explode into open conflict. In April 1775, the first shots of the American Revolutionary War will be fired, and historians will look back at the cold night in Boston Harbor in 1773 as one of the moments when the road to revolution truly began. What you've just seen is a reconstruction of Boston in 1773 during the days leading up to the Boston Tea Party. The streets, the harbor, the ships, the atmosphere of tension inside the city, all visualized using AI reconstruction technology, allowing us to recreate historical environments and moments that no camera could ever record. And sometimes, the quiet days before a historic event reveal just as much as the event itself. Because history doesn't change in a single moment. It builds slowly until one night, everything changes.